Welcome everyone to Topic Wonders 22. I'm your host, Matrix Lord 212, and I'm with Steampunk Starraisin.
Of Everstreet.com here in Hollywood.
And I'm here with Joe. What's up, Joe?
What's up, guys?
All right. So what do you got, Steampunk?
I was talking about, we were talking off camera about the Juno spacecraft that's in the unmanned spacecraft that a couple months ago, I think, reached orbit around Jupiter. And there's been several missions to Jupiter before, but this is only the second mission that's in orbit and not a flyby. Because like Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 in the 70s first did a flyby by Jupiter and took some pictures as it was flying by, but it didn't get a chance to study Jupiter in depth. And this is only the second mission. There was another mission, I can't remember the name of it right offhand, in the 90s that did a study in orbit.
So how long is it going to stay in orbit, like for this mission?
Let me look that up real quick.
And let me just screen share something with you guys too.
I know it's going to be in orbit. It got into orbit July the 4th, 2016, and it made news when they successfully got communication back from the spacecraft that it successfully got to orbit around Jupiter. It's in a polar orbit.
Right. Will it show any of the moons too, or is it just while it's there?
Yeah, it's studying the whole system. Jupiter is like a miniature solar system.
Mm-hmm.
And Jupiter closely resembles a brown dwarf star. Right. What they think a brown dwarf star would look like, because it actually emits its own solar radiation and its own solar radiation separate from the sun. It's just not a big enough gas giant to ignite. So, but it does generate heat and radiation and a lot of tidal waves on planetary structures. Like a lot of the moons are super large, like small planets. You know, you have moons that are bigger than our moon.
Right.
And if they were in their own orbit, they would be considered planets. So yeah, Jupiter is a very interesting system. I mean, I love Titan. Titan's my favorite moon. Or actually, Titan's the moon of Saturn. My apologies. But yeah, Jupiter is my favorite. Like, it's almost like a miniature solar system, and it's one of my favorite planets. Hold on, I'm trying to find out the...
Now, the thing is, after it goes to Jupiter, what's the mission after that? I mean, because it's still going to be going further out, right?
I got a timeline here. I just found it. Sorry, I apologize for the delay. That's what I was scurrying to find. It was launched in August 2011, and in August 2012 through September 2012, they made some course corrections. And because you can bounce, you can take advantage of the gravity of planets like Mars or Venus. Venus is a really good planet to bounce off of with an unmanned spacecraft, because it allows the spacecraft to accelerate with using relatively little fuel. And you just use it's like a ping pong, or like a ping pong table. You bounce off of it, and it goes faster. Yeah, and then in October 2013, Earth flyby for speed boost from 78,000 miles per hour to 93,000 miles per hour. And then on July the 4th, 2016, arrival at Jupiter and polar orbit insertion, first orbit. In October 2016, science phased 37 orbits planned over 20 months. So it's got onboard rocket boosters where it allow it to adjust its own orbit, which is interesting. Cool. And so it can study different angles of the planet and study the weather system. They hope to find more evidence of water on the surface of Jupiter. And on September the 1st, 2017, earliest expected Juno cam failure. Oh, they're actually already expecting one of the cameras to fail by September 2017, and then because this is done on a budget, so they probably
Right.
cut some corners, and they were like, well, if the camera works for a year, at least accomplishes its mission.
Oh, okay.
But and then in February 2018, spacecraft disposal in the form of a controlled orbit into Jupiter.
Oh, so they're going to throw it right into Jupiter.
They're going to throw it right into Jupiter. They've done this they did this with another spacecraft a few years ago. The name right now escapes me, but the reason for throwing it into Jupiter is Jupiter's such a big, massive planet. The spacecraft will be scattered and destroyed, and they don't believe that there's any life on Jupiter. They don't believe there's any possibility for life to be on Jupiter, so you wouldn't. And some of these spacecraft that go into orbit around Jupiter, or other unmanned spacecraft that go into orbit around other planetary bodies, may have minute traces of bacteria. And some of the moons of Jupiter, like Europa and Io and some of these other moons, it's possible that they could have microscopic life. And
Right.
if you throw, this spacecraft is going to crash anyway. It's going to run out of fuel, and it's going to decay in orbit. You don't want it crashing into a moon and contaminating that moon with Earth-based bacteria. Because then that will contaminate any evidence. Because then you would say, well, did life come from that moon, or did it come from Earth? And so you would contaminate any evidence. So they've done this before, and it makes total sense why they would throw it sooner than I expected. I thought that this mission was going to last like 10 years, but yeah, it's only going to last till February 2018.
When will we get the photographs sent to Earth? How long does that take?
Well, it's taking a lot of photographs. That could take years. They collect a lot of data. I mean, they'll could probably get I think they've already sent back. It's already sent back some of its earliest photographs, but to send all of its information back could take years.
Okay.
I remember that from the New Horizons spacecraft. They said that all the information in the New Horizons was sending back on Pluto would take years for them to decipher all the information. There was a ton of information.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it's important because you have state-of-the-art technology, a relatively recently built unmanned spacecraft that's studying the planet in depth as opposed to a flyby. Because a flyby mission, like Voyager 2, you take a few pictures and you don't really study it in depth. You don't study the weather patterns. Studying the weather patterns of Jupiter could be very fascinating and could help. Carl Sagan had once theorized that there could be a type of life on Jupiter. He called them he was only theoretical. He called them floaters and sinkers, and these would be life forms that were kind of like a hot air balloon made of hydrogen gas.
Right.
And as they age, they would reach higher altitude, and then they would sink. And then there might even be predators that would consume such life forms. But based on all the...
You never know. I mean, we have no idea what's out there. And I was always fascinated with the planets when I was a kid, but we didn't have half the technology where we only saw, you only knew of the 9 planets, and maybe there was another planet, and now you have these telescopes that they get 100 every week or so, and there's thousands and thousands and thousands of planets now.
Well, Kepler spacecraft, which is in solar orbit around the sun, has been getting a lot of marvelous information, detecting thousands upon thousands of exoplanets. That's another whole story for another day. But
Pluto's still not a planet anymore. That sucks.
Well, it's a dwarf planet. It's a planetoid
That
object.
was one of the biggest things that I hated that they did that, because I never agreed with any of that stuff. That they have to put classifications with, planets and size and stupid crap.
I think it would make it confusing, because then you would have to give Ares planet status, because Ares is another dwarf planet that's larger than Pluto. It's out there past the orbit of Pluto. But,
Joe, do you find any of these things interesting, like planets and stuff, or no?
No, I love astronomy.
I'm talking to Joe, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean
You find
That's
that
cool. I
interesting?
like space and stuff. I'm fascinated by planets and how much life there is actually out there.
You have
I have
to.
a
Now, how is that game? How is that game No Man's Sky? Right.
It's amazing.
That's what that is basically going to different planets, right?
Yeah, it's going out into space and discovering these planets and the life forms on them and stuff.
That I definitely got to bring next time I'll play that.
I have a list of scientific objectives. I just found a summary list.
Okay.
I could read that off.
Well, before you do that, I just want to, Joe, like, how
Okay.
long does it take to go to each thing? Like, is it you have to spend a long time? Like
No,
each planet?
you don't have to. I mean, you could just literally land on a planet, get the resources you need to fuel up, and then you need to fuel up at each planet so you could actually go to the next one.
Right.
And it takes you could just literally land on a planet, get the resources, and just take off and go to the next one.
Wow.
And you need a warp drive to get to obviously make it faster
Right.
to and from
Yeah.
each planet.
Yeah, it's Steampunk. What do you got?
Okay, this the list of scientific objectives. Thanks to Wikipedia here, I'm citing my source. They have a summary list. It says Juno spacecraft's suite of science instruments will determine the ratio of oxygen to hydrogen, effectively measuring the abundance of water. See, I already mentioned that earlier. In Jupiter, which will help distinguish prevailing theories linking Jupiter's formation to the solar system. And number 2, attain a better estimate of Jupiter's core mass. I know that's controversial among astronomers. Some astronomers think that it might just be solid gas, like there's no real core. But I think based on a lot of circumstantial evidence and a lot of physical evidence that it has an iron core, but it's just determining how big is that iron core. And so core mass will determine the size of the iron core. To distinguish prevailing theories linking Jupiter's formation to the solar system, map Jupiter's gravitational field to access the distribution of mass in Jupiter's interior, including the properties of the structure and dynamics, precisely map Jupiter's magnetic field to assess the origin and structure of the field and how deep in Jupiter the magnetic field is created. The experiment will help scientists understand the fundamental physics of domino theory.
Wow.
And map the variation in atmospheric composition, temperature, structure, cloud opacity, dynamics to far greater than 100 bars. That's a meteorological measurement. 10 MPs, 15 pounds, or basically the average atmospheric pressure is about 1,450 pounds per square inch. They want to verify that. And in other words, you wouldn't be able to survive there. You would implode. Characterize and explore three-dimensional structure of Jupiter's solar magnetosphere and auroras. They recently found out that Jupiter has auroras in its northern hemisphere, very similar to Earth. Very fascinating.
Oh, wow.
Has weather patterns, water, clouds.
Cool.
Measure the, and the last objective is measure the orbital frame dragging, known as lens. Sorry, I'm skewing my words here. Lens
That's okay.
staring, lens staring perception caused by angular momentum of Jupiter, possibly a test of general relativity effects connected with the Jovian rotation. Anyway, they basically, I guess to determine whether it has a slight wobble or not. That's the best way I could translate that into English.
All
But
right.
I mean, they're saying it has a very strong magnetic field, and if you look at planets like Mars and Venus, did you know that Mars and Venus have no magnetic field? And that's, although Venus has a very thick atmosphere, the problem also with Venus is you would have heavy solar radiation from the sun, without a magnetic field to protect you, it would be very toxic and lethal. You get cancer. Same thing on the surface of Mars. So if we ever send a manned mission to Mars to prevent astronauts from getting cancer, you're going to have some kind of protective clothing or protective gear, and they haven't quite figured that out yet.
Yeah, I heard that they can't go to Mars yet. Yeah.
Well,
All right, we're gonna
be willing to volunteer for cancer. Anyway.
We're gonna do another topic one. There's another time. I just got a news thing, so we're gonna have to do another a real walking cast with the Walking Dead. So Steampunk, maybe we'll pick it up tomorrow. Another topic one. There's the one you wanted to do.
Sounds good.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye for now.